Severely ill infants. It is a tragic fact that many children are born with disabilities. According to the Centers for Disease Control, about 1 in every 33 babies in the United States, roughly 3%, are born with birth defects. Approximately 120,000 babies are born each year with birth defects. Even more will show developmental problems as they grow older, with the percentage as high as 14% of school-aged children with such issues. Unfortunately, many of these infants will die due to these birth defects. These deaths account for more than 20% of infant deaths. For some, however, this is not sufficient. Arguments are often made for the case of child euthanasia, especially in the case of severely ill infants. Some people, such as Princeton's Dr. Peter Singer, say that infants are not people. They have no identity, no sense of being, and killing them shouldn't concern us. It should be a just, fine, and ethically correct decision to euthanize a baby that a doctor has labeled with a low quality of life. Yet what right does anyone have to decide the quality of life of another human being? Yes, infants are humans. What else would they be? They are people, and while they may not be as fully developed, or as developed as we are, people who have grown and now function in society, they are just as human as you or me. The thing with these babies, though, is that they have no clear means of communication. They have no way of telling you that they're there. They can't oppose you. Their lack of voice makes it easier for people to justify their murder. Just because children may grow up with hardships or be disabled doesn't mean that you have to end their life before it even begins. Everyone deserves a chance. All human lives are worth saving. No one is lesser than another. Just because a person is disabled most certainly does not make them any less important or make their lives any less worth living than the average human being. In fact, throughout history, you can find many examples of extraordinary people who became that way because of hardships and seemingly insurmountable obstacles to overcome. These exact situations can bring out the best of our characteristics as human beings. Of course, not everyone agrees with this point. Dr. Singer, who is currently the Ira W. DeCamp Professor of Bioethics at the Princeton Center for Human Values, an Australian moral philosopher, 2004's Australian Humanist of the Year, has this to say about the euthanasia of severely ill infants from his 1993 publication entitled Practical Ethics, and I quote, "When the death of a disabled infant will lead to the birth of another infant with better prospects of a happy life, the total amount of happiness will be greater if the disabled infant is killed. It may still be objected that to replace either a fetus or a newborn infant is wrong because it suggests to disabled people living today that their lives are less worth living than the lives of people who are not disabled. Yet it is surely flying in the face of reality to deny that, on average, this is so. The main point is clear. Killing a disabled infant is not morally equivalent to killing a person. Very often it is not wrong at all." End quote. Dr. Singer says that a disabled person living his or her own life now in accordance with their own wishes deserves respect. But some of those disabled people wouldn't be living their lives now if someone had decided to kill them when they were born. They would not be here to respect if their lives had ended when they were babies. He says that killing a disabled infant is not morally equivalent to killing a person. But does he think that kittens are not cats? Is killing a puppy very different from killing your full-grown dog, or shooting a fawn accidentally instead of its father? Is that so very different? Dr. Singer is treating infants, disabled infants in this case, as if they were not human. But they are, very much so. I would like to see him scientifically classify them any other way. In Belgium, euthanasia for all ages has been legalized. Children who have a terminal illness may choose when to die. If they are truly suffering, with absolutely no relief in sight, they can raise their hand and say, "Doctor, I'd like to die." Isn't that terrible? Not only giving children the power to decide to end their own lives, granted they are required to have parental consent, but to present to them the choice? To make that child sit and wonder if they or their family would be better off if they were dead. Is that heavy burden something that should be placed on a child's shoulders? Do you let your child choose whether or not to attend school or receive any form of education? Many of the burdens adults face in their lives are not put upon children. Economic and monetary decisions, political decisions, and things of that nature are not left to the kids to decide, and often the choice to even ponder them isn't presented. When I was a child, I couldn't even make good decisions regarding which foot to put my shoes on. I frequently put my shoes on the wrong feet. I can't imagine what I would have done with a decision about the most precious possession we have, life itself. What might we be missing due to such decisions? No one could possibly know what impact on humankind a child euthanized might have had. Maybe they would have overcome their illness through medical advances or some other miracle and lived a long, healthy life afterward. They might even make some significant discovery or inventive contribution to society. Perhaps they would have lived out a not too long but difficult life, mostly alone, and might have only affected one other person in a positive way. But perhaps this was their purpose. Perhaps the person they touched did great things as a result. What could possibly give anyone the gall to think that they have the right to make such a weighty decision? We mourn greatly for young lives destroyed by suicide. It's tragic, it's unthinkable, it devastates. How can euthanasia really be seen so differently by so many? It seems the same thing to me, except really it is worse, as these victims don't actually even kill themselves. Many countries have laws that criminalize helping someone commit suicide. Is this really so different? Is it different just because of illness or disability? When pondering this subject, I can't help but be reminded of the Lois Lowry book, The Giver. In the book's society, thought to be a utopia, they release the old and the weak in a world that lacks emotion and embraces control over all areas of life. This release mentioned in the book is obviously euthanasia. Among those euthanized are the smaller sets of any twins born, as they allow for only 50 births per year. This always struck a chord with me, being the smaller born of a set of twins. But really, where could thinking such as this lead? In Oregon, where physician-assisted suicide is legal, the state's healthcare will not pay for treatment for conditions they deem futile. They define this as not having at least a 5% chance to extend a person's life for at least 5 years. In this case, the healthcare system will pay for a person's assisted suicide. Thankfully, this does not apply to children yet, but think how we watch with awe at the tiniest of babies born with next to no chance to live, but who fight it out and grow to be healthy adults. This happens time after time, and yes, not all instances result in such happy outcomes, but this should just be affirmation that such decisions should not be left to people. Childhood should be a joyful time. While this might not always be true, especially for children with birth defects or illness, should it not be our goal to help these children find the joy and worth in life instead of making them feel worthless enough to want to be killed? I'm saddened that we even have to ask such a question. I pray the future for all children will become brighter, beginning with no more consideration of child euthanasia.